On the morning of December 1st, 1948, locals walking along Australia's Somerton Park beach found a man lying lifeless in the sand. He was dressed impeccably in a crisp suit and tie, out of place for the shoreline. Yet an initial examination revealed no obvious cause of death. There were no wounds, no signs of trauma, and no evidence of a struggle. Investigators, expecting a routine identification, quickly hit a wall. Someone had taken scissors and meticulously snipped away every single manufacturer's label from the collar of his shirt down to the lining of his trousers. A person does not accidentally lose all of their clothing tags. This removal of evidence suggests his identity was scrubbed, creating a total information vacuum to ensure he could never be traced. Months passed with no leads, until a forensic search of his clothing uncovered a secret. Sewn deep inside the waistband of his trousers was a tiny, hidden fob pocket. Inside that pocket, police retrieved a tightly rolled scrap of paper. It had been physically torn from a rare edition of a book. The paper contained two printed Persian words, Tamam Shud. Translated into English, the phrase means the end, or finished. Planting a rare, poetic message about finality on a sanitized body suggests intense planning. This was a staged curtain drop on an unknown life. The phrase Tamam Shud is the closing line of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, a 12th century book of poetry. Police eventually tracked down the exact physical copy that the scrap had been torn from. On the back cover of that book, investigators found 5 lines of capitalized, seemingly random letters, a handwritten code. For over 7 decades, military cryptographers have run these letters through countless cipher systems. The sequence remains uncracked. Beside that code was an unlisted telephone number. It led to a local nurse who lived a short walk from the beach. When detectives showed her the man's plaster death mask, she appeared terrified, yet she firmly denied ever knowing him. A dead man wearing sanitized clothes, carrying an indecipherable code, and linked to a terrified local contact. These pieces align with the operational profile of a Cold War intelligence operative. That espionage profile stood unchallenged until 2022, when investigators moved from analog detective work to modern forensic science. When the original plaster death mask was cast back in 1949, a few of the man's hairs were trapped in the mold. Scientists extracted a single strand and mapped his genetic family tree. The results provided a definitive identification after 74 years. His real name was Carl Webb. The genetic profile did not point to a shadowy defector. Carl Webb lived the civilian life of an electrical engineer from Melbourne. This identification forces a collision between 70 years of legend and a far simpler reality. The cinematic James Bond figure is replaced by an ordinary citizen. Having a definitive name actually makes the circumstances of his death more difficult to explain. Why would a civilian electrical engineer go through the methodical process of scrubbing his own identity by cutting every label off his clothes? Why does a regular citizen from Melbourne die on a beach carrying an uncracked secret code and a hidden pocket containing a rare Persian poem? And how does an ordinary engineer cross paths with a local nurse, leaving her terrified enough to maintain a lifelong silence about his identity? There is a limit to what forensic technology can explain. DNA can map a man's lineage from a single strand of hair, but it provides no insight into the private motives or hidden associations that define a life. The Somerton Man remains an enigma. We now know who Carl Webb was on a census form, but that brings us no closer to understanding why he orchestrated the end